So the new Metroid is out for the 3DS. And
Beeping, beeping,
as you can hear,
beeping.
Zyad's already
Aeon,
playing in the background.
Aeon
So,
things.
so,
Let's see. Does
so
this
what do
thing
you what do you
that
think
wall
about it?
opens? Okay.
Like so far, like from the music to the action. Like so far, I like it, and I'm already in area 2, but so far I like it.
Yeah, I am enjoying it. I can give this game. I will say this: props for originality more than anything else in this game.
Yeah, because from the original,
It
it was
is.
like barely anything.
This isn't. I would say to the point where this isn't Metroid 2. This is an entirely. This is
Yeah,
basically
like
an
this is
entirely new game.
brand new adventure. Just like, especially like the tile work. Like even though it's gone from sprite based to 3D, it's like essentially a
The
brand new
areas
world.
are the areas are entirely different. It's like it's an entirely new Metroid adventure wrapped up in an old Metroid story.
And yeah, and I like the way that they're still going with the retelling of 2, because a lot of people in other videos have mentioned not many people have actually played through 2 and actually wanted to beat it because it's
I would
it's
say there's probably a
it's so
grand total of
unappealing.
only 5 people who have actually played 2.
Like I
Like
actually
to the
own the
end.
cartridge. I don't know where I put it. It's somewhere among my Game Boy Advance games and Game Boy Color games, but I've never sat down and beaten
I've
it
tried
until like a
multiple
couple years
times to.
back.
I've sat down multiple times to try and beat it, and it's like you're just asking for torture at that
It
point.
is, and like I said before, like I've only
Like the original Metroid 2 is just a terrible, terrible game.
oh yeah, and like I said before, like I've only beaten it once, right?
I've never
And
beaten it at
and
all. I've never actually invested enough time to try and do that.
no, well, no, yeah, like I spent like multiple years, multiple playthroughs just to like play it a piece at a time, and multiple times I've gotten lost. At least with this, you
I
can
should give you some. I
distinguish
should give
everything.
you. I should give you a little bit of context. I say that I did not. I would not sit down to dedicate the time to beat Metroid 2. But to give you some context, I've actually played and fully beaten Mega Man and Bass a few times in a row.
I don't think I've ever played Mega Man in Base, but I have wanted to.
Worst Mega Man game, and also the hardest by far. Well,
Hmm.
actually, no, I wouldn't say hardest. Mega Man Zero is the hardest. Oh man, Zero was really, really hard. But I actually like Zero. And it's like if I have the patience, I have the patience to sit down and play through like Mega Man Zero or Mega Man Base. I don't have the patience to play through Metroid 2 at all ever. And Metroid is like my favorite franchise of video games. So that says something.
Yeah, and but going back to Metroid, so like, so far the music is great. Like I like the remixes, the like the whole reimaginings, and just like
I
how
can say
they
one thing I
relate to their
dislike.
source material.
Yeah, I like what music there is, and that's the one thing I have to mention. Is like, yes, the music where it exists is good. The problem being that despite being almost an entirely new game in most different aspects, they for some reason decided let's sort of still keep the idea that like that the original had, where like the soundtrack was also very minimal as well.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like
It's
I
like
thought
it's
about
not
that too.
necessarily it's nowhere near as minimal as the original, but there's quite a few times where there's like basically no music playing.
But at least in Samus's Return's defense, like it's not as bad as playing the same song for like
Yeah,
80% of the game. Bad.
yeah,
It's
obviously
like
it still does it still does a way better job. Just
in certain sectors you'll hear like this song and then like obviously when you're in the caves you hear like this just this few notes being played, but at least there's something there to distinguish the zones, unlike just the same theme that gets burned in your brain then you don't even like it anymore. Like
though, if I am going to say one thing that might be a tad controversial, I'd say that AM2R has the better soundtrack.
oh, most definitely, yeah. Like I've played through M2R and it's 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 amazing. Like every zone, even the caves, right? Every zone and even
Yeah,
the caves
ev-
have their own music. Even though
every have
some of them are like Metroid Prime inspired, and like some of them in here too. And
yeah,
in
yeah,
Samus
of course.
Returns is
You
Metroid
can
Prime inspired.
like like when they obviously bring back the
but
Lower Norfair theme again,
but instead they use
it sounds more like Magmore Caverns than it sounds like Lower Norfair from Super Metroid.
yeah, even though you're like nowhere near it, like you're
Yeah,
nowhere near Norfair at all, but like they just want to remind you like this is lava, and we know the song that you associate with lava, so here you go.
and to be fair, it is a great theme. I can't necessarily say which one of the two remakes have the better version of that song. In my opinion, the best official remix that Nintendo's ever done was Magmore Caverns and Prime.
Yeah, for that song,
And
yeah.
yeah, for that theme in particular, and that's also my favorite Metroid theme in general. Like it's just such a great theme in my opinion. But like out of like between Samus Returns and AM2R, both of them have like two different remixes of the same theme, and I'd say both of them are kind of neck and neck in that respect, because like the one in AM2R is sort of like techno or whatever, and
Yeah,
in this game it's more
kind of like the
ambient.
especially it gets a little more techno in AM2R, especially when you get to the tower, and it's like on your way to like fight the tester, like, you know what I mean? Where it's
I
got
know I
that
need to
kind
play
of
the
techno
Texture
vibe.
Master. It's not even the theme; it's like the prelude to it, essentially, and it's more atmospheric and ambient.
Yeah,
But then once you get to the thing, it's actually, it actually does sound like a techno remix of Magmore Caverns or Lower Norfair, as it actually is. So,
but
hi, Brim.
as Brimstone crashes the recording.
Yes.
Don't worry, we'll keep that in.
Yeah. I don't care.
but
Slapstick. Scenes action.
there is one thing I want to point to when we're still talking about music, is that if you ever take the time to like just let the game sit on the main menu and on the file select menus, when you're on the file select menu, I love the internal ship theme that came from like Prime 3. I love that theme. It kind of reminds you that you're on a mission. You're about to you need music to get pumped up before you head out of your ship.
Are you saying they're taking Samus seriously?
I would be happy after the atrocity that is Other M. The only thing good for Other M though is combat, and that's about it. Some of the songs were great, but mostly the combat is what did it. Is what kept me playing that game.
Wait, Other M had a soundtrack?
No.
Like I said,
It had a decent soundtrack.
Okay. I was talking about this game having a minimal soundtrack. Other M has a really, really minimal soundtrack.
Yeah, for where there is sound, it's decent.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to point towards was the main menu theme, like the start menu, where it starts off kind of new, but if you let it play and like re-loop itself, it actually starts off like the Metroid 2 cartridge, with like the ringing noise. And I like how they
I'm gonna listen to that in just a second. I need to get to like a save point, and wait, I was just at a save point. All right, time to exit.
But when you get to it, like just like have a listen, and it's just like when it plays all the way through, you can hear how it's just.
All right, I currently on my current save file, I am apparently 40.7% done with the game.
How many hours do you have so far?
8 hours and 47 minutes.
And that's just.
I take my time playing Metroid.
Oh no, I do the same too. I can't be a completionist. Like I can't be a speed running completionist. Is what I'm saying. But unless I really want to see the ending, which
at least when it specifically comes to this game, since it's a new one, I take my time with it because I don't actually know where everything is.
I mean, when it comes to Metroid games, the longest I've ever spent in a game is a couple of years, because I started Prime 2 came out, I bought Prime, and I beat them all out of order. So I knew who Dark Samus was, but I didn't know how she came to be. So just to give you a sense of like how slow I like to take my games.
Technically speaking, it took me like 6 or 7 years before I actually finished Prime, because the furthest I ever got in the original Prime was the Omega Pirate fight, which
that's like the hardest fight, and like in my opinion, that's one of the hardest fights in Metroid.
Until you beat him once, because after that point, it's like the way that I always play Metroid Prime at this point. It's like I'm fighting Omega Pirate before I even have the gravity suit, because I know how to sequence break really good in Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
So because of that, by the time I get to him, the only thing that at this point, I've honed my skills with dodging shit and just knowing when to just be like, okay, just take a hit. It doesn't really matter at this point, because even with the way that I play Prime and get there with really like low equipment and all that to make
Yeah.
a pirate really quickly, you'll take damage, sure, but you're never gonna take enough damage to actually die from him unless you just aren't mobile. It's like if you stay mobile, even if you start getting hurt, just like as far as boss strategies go, just ignore the little goons he summons. Just go after him specifically, and he's like one of the easiest fights in the game.
Yeah, his goons really do throw you off, and as far as like hard fights, like I wanna hope that after fighting these Metroids in like Samus Returns for like the first time, that going through it on like another run after beating the file, that I'm able to like memorize how I did for like a Mega Pirate and just breeze through it, and then increase my time and decrease my time, like kind of like how most people do for Zero Mission. Because Zero Mission, like if you played it a lot, like I've played it over 20 times that I can remember. I probably played it more than that.
I've beaten that game in around an hour's time.
Yeah,
Zero Mission is
my
a
time is like
short
usually
game once you
like
figure
an
out how-
hour and 30.
Yeah, like the game is really, really short.
It's
once
really
you
short,
figure out
but it's
how
like,
how it
but
plays.
in terms of like how like story driven, it's story driven like in terms of lore as AM2R, or I'm calling Samus Returns AM2R because that's been in my brain for like the past year and a half now. So like Samus Returns, in terms of like how heavy, even though they're short stories, they hold a lot of weight in terms of the lore.
Yeah, but
Because
like,
this game
specifically
literally triggers the events of Super.
Yeah, but specifically when it comes to exact game length, Zero Mission is the shortest game in the series. Once you've beaten it a few times,
Yeah.
because you start to notice it's like, wow, this is actually really fast to just blow through.
Yeah.
Speaking of boss difficulty, though,
yeah, I was
feel
gonna
like
lead into that. The Metroids.
yes,
Yeah, the Metroids and the surrounding
they're
like,
not
enemies,
hard.
They're
not hard.
They're
they
not hard
just
to
do
fight. Yeah.
way too much damage for what they need to do.
But then again,
honestly.
in the original, everything can almost kill you.
I know for a fact in the original you did not take an entire.
You didn't take this much damage.
Because
if you weren't careful,
I feel like it's a bit absurd in this case because it's like, if I straight up just go and touch one of the Metroids, like the Gamma Metroid or something, I take an entire tank's worth of damage. That's way too much for.
And honestly,
touch,
I agree.
As far as touch damage is concerned, it's like if you're doing a minimal run where you don't have like when you're not going out your way to get energy tanks, or whatever, in like a speed run or something, that's like a one shot at having no extra health, basically.
And I agree with that because it's just like
if you want to talk about the speedrunning side of this, once this game starts to take off, it's like the speed game in this game is essentially going to be perfecting the art of dodging shit.
Yeah, and I agree with that because it's just like most Metroid games, you still have survivability. Like Prime, you could survive a good amount of hits if on one tank before you died. Maybe not like Zero Mission during the Zero suit sections, but then again, you're in your Z suit. You have no armor.
And it's like right now in this game, you essentially take around the same amount of damage that Samus took when she was in her fusion suit at the beginning of Zero Mission.
And even then, in the fusion suit, you again had no armor because they surgically removed it.
It's basically you're in your Zero suit with a cannon. Is essentially all it is. And it made sense in that kind of case. It's like how what are they called? The little beetles that crawled along the ground did those did around a tank of damage, I believe. They did some crazy amount of damage. And it's like it made sense then, but it's like, why this? Like, especially even late into the game, you still take a lot of damage even with the gravity suit and various.
But you take more. But it's like you don't feel it like late game. You don't feel it until you fight like the later Metroids or the Queen, I think. Like, I haven't been to the Queen, but like playing the original, the Queen would fuck you up if you didn't know what the fuck to do.
At this point, honestly, I haven't actually noticed how much specific amount of damage I'm taking from these Metroids because now that I've figured out the Ice Beam Super Missile combo, the Gamma Metroids don't deal nearly as much damage to me, and I kill them in like a fraction of the amount of time.
Yeah, and speaking about the ice thing, you wanna
Makes no sense, but you know what? I'll take it.
well, yeah, but speaking about the ice thing, like because of their weak spot, like it makes a little sense because they still have the
Yeah,
they
is
still
technically
have
the same
like
core of
the
a Metroid
larva
there.
kind of like section, like the soft section where like they can be damaged like that because that is the only known weakness to any Metroid if it's exposed.
But the thing is, like, even in the original and stuff, like, the lore is basically that they were straight up just immune to ice. So I don't understand why they changed it here specifically.
Well, in the
Though,
lore, like oh yeah, the
like,
Zetas
in the
and the
lore,
Alphas and all like that.
yeah, in the lore of it, they straight up say they are immune to ice entirely.
Well, I feel
And if
like
you
with this
want, and
game,
before someone mentions the Omega Metroid at the end of Fusion, that was a Metroid clone, an imperfect clone. Hence why it was damaged by the ice beam at the end of Fusion.
well, I feel like they want to rewrite it. Like
Yeah.
they know the clone was imperfect, but they want to rewrite it because Metroid 2 was made years ago. Due to the limitations, people won't care about the events of Metroid 2 unless you're like one of us, people that like love the lore, and they know most people have not played the original version, so this gives them
Yeah.
a chance to rewrite everything and say, well, OG
You've
Metroids that
you've
you've seen
probably
can be damaged.
like you've probably heard that Metroids are afraid of ice, because it's like basically one of the most well-known things in the Metroid community. It's like ice beam eats Metroid type of thing.
Yeah, unless it's
But
I think unless in Prime 2 when it's like the corrupt Metroid, I think it's not affected as much.
excuse me, you don't have an ice beam in Prime 2.
Well, yeah, because it's not affected. Well, I think because of
No.
the way it's corrupted, I don't think it's affected as much because where the atmosphere of Prime 2 is really fucking poisonous
It
and
didn't
like
matter
hot,
because what
You
was funny about
you never
that?
had an ice beam, but still,
No. You know what was funny about that? It didn't matter because you would be able to use stuff like the dark beam to freeze those anyway.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's right. The ice beam was kind of like the dark beam.
The dark beam was the ice beam of that game, and yeah, that's all you really needed to use.
That is true. But I feel like what they wanted to do in this game was like rewrite it so that hey, the larva form, yeah, it can be fully freeze, it can be like fully frozen, right? But then there's this weak spot on the other ones until you get to the queen, and the only way, if you remember, like
not power bombs in the original. You would just go into
you would
her
go
mouth
into her
start
mouth
bombing
and like
them.
bombing her insides.
And
That's the only
I'll
way.
admit one thing about Other M that I did like is that at the finale, you jumped into her mouth and then power bombed her to hell. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's like one of the few satisfying moments of Other M though.
It's the most satisfying moment in the game, honestly.
But I mean, I'm only in Sector 2 of like Samus Returns, but
Currently, I am in Sector 5 fighting a Metroid.
well, as for as far as we've both gone, and I know you're nowhere like near the end. You're probably like mid game, if anything.
At Area 5?
Well, I don't know how much more they've added.
True, you're right.
Because we don't know how much. Like, only people that know are people that got copies before us. We got it like day one or days.
To be fair, it does only say 9 Metroids left. And
Okay,
in
well
the
then, yeah, you're
original-
late game, yeah.
Yeah, in the original game, you got down to 0, then you went to another place, and spoiler alert, you fought 10. It's only struck up to, I believe, 10 extra Metroids on the counter, and they were all like the original Metroids.
Oh well, shit. Well, we only started with 40 in the beginning, didn't we?
Yeah.
So that means there's still 10 secret, well, quote unquote.
Oh my
secrets.
god, I'm an idiot.
So there's still probably 50.
Dude, I've been avoiding the lava in this entire room as I'm fighting this Metroid, but I forgot that I had the gravity suit, which makes me immune to lava. I'm an idiot.
It's been a while for me, so like I forget where early game and late game is. Like I said, I've only beaten the game once because it's that much of a bore to like fucking play the OG Metroid 2. With this one, it's fucking pretty. It sounds nice, and it makes me want to play it more than once.
Yeah. let's talk about like some comparisons specifically between the two, aside from like the obvious comparisons we've already done between like music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about controls for a second here.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like
In
I
my
don't agree with
opinion,
how the controls are
honestly,
right now.
I feel like you can't get better than AM2R's controls. AM2R had the perfect engine for playing.
Yeah,
It
because you.
had it didn't have quite as all the tricks that Super Metroid had, but it still had it still had more complicated controls similar to Super Metroid, but it also had the what do you call it? It had the extra little tricks and quirks with the controls that you could do, but it also had the responsiveness and tightness of what do you call it? Of Zero Mission Fusion, or specifically Zero Mission, because Zero Mission was more better than Fusion in terms of the engine, in my opinion.
Like, I agree with you on that because the way they have it set up now, and and early on for anyone who like buys this game after this this video goes up, the one thing I hated pressing was the Aeon ability for the scan pulse. I don't like accidentally pressing it. Now, later in the game, during like maybe like Sector 1, mid Sector 1, I figured out you can cancel the Aeon.
Yeah, you have to. You can just press A again if you don't
want
like
to activate. So like in sections where I don't want to see shit, I'm like, oh god, don't, and I hurry up and press it again. But it's still annoying that I can't say, well, why don't I just put you on a back shoulder button?
Exactly. Like both. I'm pretty sure you have a new 3DS, right?
Yeah, I have the new one. I have the new red.
And there's probably going to be plenty of people who play this game who are also on new 3DSs who are just going to be like, why can't I change the controls to have ZR honestly, or ZL be my Aeon?
Like, honestly, they could have taken advantage of the fucking C nipple, the other shoulder buttons, and basically let you flip the stick and the D-pad.
Yeah, that's another thing I dislike. It's like, yes, this game, by comparison to AM2R, does control remarkably well. Like, despite running at 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
Aside from, like, one quirk being that, like, you can't actually wall jump up a single wall, and the fact that
that's been made pretty easy. Like, you can just tap and it wall jumps.
Yeah, like legit, you don't even need to move the analog stick.
Like, I don't mind it, but like a part of me after playing Super Metroid on my 3DS, because like it's on the 3DS eShop and stuff.
But my skill though.
Yeah, it's like when you play this on 3DS or on the Virtual Console back on the Wii U, you're like you want to move the stick to wall jump, and then you figure out you could just keep tapping it. Like,
yeah, you don't even need to hold any direction. All you gotta do is just somersault to the wall and then just mash A, and you'll just jump off the wall immediately. You don't even need to try anything.
Like, there needs to be like an update for like across the board for in terms of like when it comes to settings. You can be like, well, for all 3DSs you can be like the OG 3DSs, 3DSs, they can be like, well, you can't obviously remap buttons because you have a limited button set, but you can swap between playing it the way we intend you to play, or if you know your Metroid shit, there's a toggle that turns on shit like you won't be able to mash A to wall jump, or this and that, and they may give them like slight customizability in terms of like
just patch the bombs to work the way they did in Zero Mission, so I can get the infinite bomb jump timing right.
Well, I don't mind the 4-bomb. I don't mind the 4-bomb, but maybe like
I don't mind 4-bomb either. My problem comes with the fact that the timing for doing the infinite bomb jump is way different than it used to be, and I can't for the life of me figure out what the timing is now. I've only done it so far. The only thing that I've ever been able to do is just mash the button, and hopefully it works, and and sometimes it just doesn't.
I mean, that's what I did. For
and I'm not saying that. I'm not criticizing it, saying like, oh, there's no consistent timing. No, there probably is a consistent.
No, there is a timing. I saw that one chick that always plays it during the events. She's actually done it.
I didn't watch any of that stuff. I just watched the main trailer, and in the main trailer, they actually showed them doing the infinite bomb jump, which actually kind of made me happy when they showed that. But it's like I still just don't know what the timing is for it. Maybe I have to analyze the trailer and figure out what it is.
I'm sure it's like a second, maybe. Maybe not even a second. Maybe like a millisecond.
It's something.
It's really close to there. It's like because the bombs blow up pretty quickly. For the most part, like watching them blow up, they seem about accurate towards Zero Mission and Super.
It is
But
not zero. It is not Zero
at
Mission.
least to me, because like I play a lot of those.
It's in between Zero Mission and Super. It's not Fusion either, because Fusion's was just ridiculously slow.
Yeah.
It was even slower than. I'm fairly certain it was slower than Super's.
I don't even think you can infinite bomb jump, right? Can you?
You can't. You can't infinite bomb jump in Fusion.
You can't.
Nope. And I just mentioned Fusion because it's like in Fusion the bomb jumps were so incredibly, amazingly slow. Oh, I just shot a super missile instead of a normal missile. Fuck.
But
Rip.
yeah, in terms of like customizing controls, from the bombs aside, like for the new 3DS owners, there needs to be a patch at least for us to be able to customize the buttons, swap the D-pad and the
Because for the love of God, I want to have a dedicated morph button. Yes, you could tap the screen.
You could tap the screen, but it's not the same as like clicking a D-pad twice really fast.
Yeah, exactly. And not only just that, like if you look
even
at
then,
AM2R had the right idea with having a dedicated morph button. Because it did it smart. Because like what, I like having an actual physical button to push, and it's more into it allows for me to better actually flow into being able to do it by pressing a button on a controller rather than reaching my thumb down awkwardly to press the bottom screen in order to morph.
Yeah, I don't like that either. It's kind of like what that reminds me of is them trying to, I guess, re-innovate the Hunter's controls, where like you would jump to touch, like if you had the touch toggle controls on, you would jump by pressing the screen in a way.
Yeah.
But instead of jumping this time around, it's morph ball.
But the difference is it still works a little bit better in Hunters because if you're on that control scheme, you're already touching the screen anyway.
You're already touching the screen to mess with missiles and stuff.
Towards that. Yeah, exactly. And it's like I'll reach over slightly to tap like a different beam weapon to switch to it on my screen, but because those are really close. But if I want to morph, I have to reach over further than that in order to specifically click on the map screen in order for it to do it.
Yeah,
because like it says you tap the bottom screen. No, you tap the map screen specifically to turn it on, to change it to that.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that because like I have tiny hands. It's hard for me to reach it because what's in the way of it is the beam switcher.
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to like touch as little as the map as possible, so I'm not overextending my thumb. Well, I'm touching the beams now.
Yeah. And because of that, like I just
like at that point when
tapping the bottom screen is a cool little idea, but at the same time,
it's a nice idea.
Like,
but for people with tiny hands, it's not gonna work.
People in the speedrunning community would probably, in my opinion, I'd say they probably get used to just double tapping twice down on the analog stick. Because yes, it's awkward at first, but once you get used to it, it actually isn't that slow and that much slower than tapping a D-pad.
Yeah.
It just feels incredibly off when you do it.
Or at least have a dedicated button like AM2R, because that's how it worked.
Exactly.
That's how it works for AM2R and Prime. There's a dedicated button.
Mm-hmm.
And
like at least in AM2R, even if you didn't want the morph button, you didn't have to use it.
You would rebind it to down.
Yeah, or no. You would just have it like classic morph ball enabled, which basically meant that you could just double tap down in order to switch into morph ball. I keep that disabled personally, because when I'm playing that, I don't want to accidentally click down twice and cause myself to mess up by turning into a morph ball when I didn't intend to.
Yeah.
And that's why I like having a dedicated button to it.
Now, what do you think about the combat so far? Like, does it feel the same? But
all the beams are incredibly spammable. Like at this point, I have all the beam upgrades in the game, and all the beams, including the ice beam, are like goddamn machine guns if you can spam it fast enough.
Yeah, that is true. They're
really fast.
The one beam that doesn't kill as fast as it used to in other games is ice, though. Like if you were to compare this one to like say Zero Mission would freeze. And then it would do like a fuck ton of damage after that. This one is just like you need like 20 shots to kill something with it.
Yeah, that's one thing I have to mention about like the beams. And I was trying to like say this from before telling you, but like the beams in this game straight up actually do mess with like damage stats and stuff. In previous games, the only beam that would actually increase your DPS would be stuff like what do you call it? The spacer beam. And the only reason the spacer beam did that because you shot 3 beams instead of 1, so you did 3 times the normal small amount of damage.
Yeah.
The only other one and plasma beam doesn't actually change your damage output. All it does is basically hit them for every frame that the beam is going through them. So technically speaking, the plasma beam doesn't actually even increase your stats, essentially. Wave beam actually does increase the damage of your beam. Plasma beam actually does increase the damage of your beam. You kill enemies way faster with the wave beam equipped. Essentially, once you get the wave beam, you know those like shrink bats that jump after you, and the fastest way to kill them is always to just stun them and then shoot them up, right?
Yeah.
Well, once you get the wave beam, you can actually 2 or 3 shot them, essentially. And like with your normal beam, you'll notice it takes like 4, 5, 6 shots or something with the normal power beam in order to kill them. And the ice beam specifically actually does lower your damage, like you said. And like the ice beam is actually it's the only beam that's actually its own selectable thing. Once you get the wave beam or the plasma beam, they overwrite your current beam, your power beam, basically. So like by the end, your power beam is replaced by a spacer wave plasma combo, but you can't actually throw ice in there for some reason.
You can?
Why? No, you can't.
Oh.
Why don't they just bring back Super Metroid's inventory?
Dude, I was thinking the same thing. Like, why don't we, when we're paused, we can be like, okay, so these all affect the same beam, but there are beams you can click on, right? So why not?
AM2R did it.
Yeah, AM2R did it. So it'd be like, well, you know, you're on ice beam, right? So just turn off ice beam and you're back to power, you know?
Yeah.
Or
I do like that at least.
But power can like split and be, you know, damage boosted. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, when you think about it, this is also actually the first time that the official game have actually showed the spacer, or actually wait, was the spacer and plasma an equipable thing? Yeah, the spacer and plasma were actually an equipable thing in Zero Mission, weren't they? Never mind.
Yeah, I think they were like the little artifacts that got turned into something after you got it back off the Chozodia ruins.
So this is the second game then to have spacer and plasma be equipable at the same time. I never understood that in Super Metroid until you realize it's like, oh, it's because of technical limitations. They ran out of cartridge space.
What, did you were able to turn off everything?
No. Why specifically you couldn't equip spacer and plasma at the same time? It was because they ran out of cartridge space for sprites.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that we should have been able to turn things on and off like AM2R and Super, because there are just things that maybe you don't want to hit it with this kind of force, and I think that's where the ice beam comes into play, because
like in previous games, at most in previous games, the ice beam would simply require you to hit a minimum of 1 extra shot. In this, because obviously you can't connect the ice beam to anything else, you straight up have to you straight up have to hit, you know, several, and that's why the ice beam is
or
like
a missile.
Yeah, and the ice beam is just in general in this game not good for combat outside of use against Metroids specifically.
And I think the other use for it is that it's meant to give you like a quick platform for like those gaps of stuff that you need to get over.
I never use it for that. I've only used it once or twice because the game specifically tells me, hey, do this. This will be useful here. And, well, now that I have the space jump and the screw attack, it's like...
Yeah, you don't really need it.
At this point...
But then again, you're in late game, also, so you're
I know, phase. But it's like I only ever had to use the ice beam for that, like, twice before I got this stuff.
Yeah, I've had to do a little bit more because I've actually backtracked to those sections to look for things. Like, I have to probably go back to one of those sections because there's something that I'm missing, and I don't want you to say it here because I don't know what breaks those crystals. I forgot what beam it was in the original because those crystals were a thing in the original.
What beam breaks them?
Yeah,
I assumed it wasn't even a beam. I think
it's the way that they're colored. They look like kind of greenish blue. I'm assuming super.
Plasma doesn't break them.
I'm assuming a super missile will crack them.
Nope.
Because there are pathways. There are whole pathways
I honestly think that power beam will break. Not power beam, power bomb will break them.
I thought about that too, because there are whole sections like whenever you like the item room where there's like the Chozo statues are holding a sphere. There's one specific underground, and it wants you to break it, but you can't break it because there's something in there, but you can't break it.
Speaking of the combat, okay, let's talk about the countering system. I like the idea that I can counter enemies when they come after me. Problem: I don't think that basically forcing it to be the most optimal way to kill certain enemies was a good idea, in my opinion.
Well, I feel like they did this, and I agree. Like it shouldn't be the optimal way to kill things, but I feel like they did this because they were like, most people play Other M, and they're like, we like the combat. So how do we give them a new experience in a 2D game, right? That isn't the same run and gun. Let's mix it up a bit. And so they probably thought about Other M, thought about the countering system. And it's like, how do we put that in this
without making it overpowered?
Yeah,
because like if you want to talk about how the the dodge roll in Other M was. Let me just give you an example here. The first time I ever fought the secret boss, what was it? Phantoon. Because for some reason Phantoon's back for some odd reason. I'm not going to question it. I just actually like that boss fight. But it's like Phantoon is the easiest boss fight in the game because like he'll start shooting a ton of rings at you, and all you got to do is just keep dodging because it automatically fully charges your beam. So it's like you just eliminate the recharge time entirely, and you just spam fully charged plasma shots at him, and he dies real fucking fast. I barely took any damage the first time I ever fought him.
Yeah, and
now let's talk. Now speaking of boss fights, here's the thing. At least with Metroids, I have only been able to consistently hit the counter on. Are Alpha Metroids the first ones? I forget.
I think so.
I think Alpha's the name of the first
like
ones.
not the squishy ones, like the ones after. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they're Alpha Metroids. I have only been able to consistently hit the counter on Alpha Metroids. On on Gamma Metroids, I feel like it's damn near impossible. Because
they show a way to do it. I don't know about Gammas. I think when they dash at you, you can.
Every enemy will have basically most enemies will have a thing where it will actually briefly glow or glint and have a small explosion or whatever, or a blast of light in the middle of their model, and then they'll attack and at that point, after the little explosion happens, you have a time to strike back with your melee counter. Here's the problem: Gamma Metroids attack so fast after that thing hits that your window for being able to hit the melee counter on them is damn near impossible.
That honestly could be a bug.
Especially because the game runs at 30 frames per second. Like, that in particular actually does mess with how much time you have. Because, it's actually easier for me to hit a Zeta Metroid's counter, like I did just now, and hit it with a bunch of super missiles.
That honestly could be a bug for that particular Metroid, though.
Yeah, I think maybe they might have messed up the time on it, and they ended up just giving.
They might have to add in some more white frames, honestly.
Like frames where it's not just going to immediately spam at you right after.
Yeah, I'm talking about the ones that they walk and they can also fly, right?
Yes, those are the Gammas.
I've fought them, and I think I've seen
Honestly,
the flash. I think
you know what's funny about it? Zeta Metroids are easier than Gamma Metroids in this game.
But you see, I think with you said the Gammas, right?
Yes.
The ones that fly. So I think I've seen the white flash, but because I'm not used to fighting the Metroids with it, I'm used to fighting the Shriek Bats and the walking spike rollers. I forget what they're called. They have a name, and I forget.
Yeah. Are those Zimmers?
They might be Zimmers. It's been a while since I've actually seen them, because I think the last time you've seen them was either in Fusion or one of the older games.
They're not in Fusion.
Well, then they must have just been in the original Metroid too. I haven't seen them in a while.
Probably, yeah.
But when you fight the normal enemies, right? it's easier. Even then, I still have trouble because I'm like, oh wait, there's a strike back system,
Mm-hmm.
and the only ones that I can really do it on, like I've learned the pattern for, are the alphas,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll hover around depending on what version variant you fight. If it has an electric dash, don't don't try to strike it. Just jump over it or something like that, or just get out the fucking way. You know.
Okay, like here's the problem with gammas. Here's specifically why the timing is such a bitch. The point with you're supposed to goat enemies in to or goad them in, whatever the pronunciation is, into coming and attacking you so that you can do the melee counter on them. And basically that entails you get close enough that they'll begin to do that, right?
Yeah.
Here's and enemies, or at least maybe not normal enemies, but like the Zetas do it right, and the Alphas do it right. Where basically they have a telegraphed timing that's really easy to spot, takes a decent amount of time, so you're ready to get your reaction speed up to do their melee counter. The what do you call it? The flash happens, and you're given enough time in between when the flash happens and when the attack would normally strike you to be able to do the counter on it. Here's the problem with Zetas, or not Zetas.
I think it's fucking gammas. Yeah.
Yeah, gammas. Here's the problem with gammas. You have to get incredibly close to them in order for or in order for them to even be goaded into doing their attack in the first place. And at that distance, you don't have enough time after, because like they'll attack like 1 or 2 frames after the little glint happens, and it's like at that and they move a decent enough distance in that amount of time that you have basically no time to react. I've only ever hit in the counter on a gamma once, and I didn't win that fight.
See, when I first fought them, I didn't even use the counter. Like the first time I encountered them, I just like evaded as best I can. I would use the electric shield to like get around them.
I barely use the shield. I only use it like when specifically the environment calls for it.
I use it outside of required environments. I use it
with exception to when I'm like on 5 health or something.
Yeah, like I'll use it as like a backup shield tank.
It's like, okay, this is kind of dangerous here. I'm gonna play it safe and activate my shield.
It's like I'm about to die to this Metroid. I need like another chance, so I would activate it, and I probably get like 2-3 hits out of it before like I'm fucked for the 4th hit.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what else there is to talk about, because I mean you're almost to like the final area, unless they added the other 10 Metroids, and then the Queen. I mean,
yeah, that's what it was originally, and I'm fairly certain that's what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah, I mean, unless they added in a section like AM2R where you can find the dead bodies of the crew that went in before you.
Oh yeah, that's right. I didn't even find that here.
There is a room near the start area like the original, and I thought about that too. I was like, wait a minute, isn't there a secret door? Because most Metroid games, especially stuff like Zero Mission, there's like another room at the start of the game that requires you to have the spider ball or because this one you can go to it with the spider ball, but you can also go to it with the space jump. But you need a particular item, and I think you need the power bomb at that point in time.
I think so.
Because I think I saw the same crystals there, and in the original, I never knew how to do it until like years later. I was like, okay, well, you need the power bomb or something like that to get in. But I don't think I ever went back to it. I think I just beat the game and said, fuck it, I'm done with this game. But with this one, I want to go back and see what's in that room, because that honestly could be like AM2R, where there's the dead crew. That's how far they got.
And okay, let's since we've already sort of gotten into it, let's talk about like the progression in this game. It is, funnily enough, actually kind of odd for a Metroid veteran like me, because like the way that I always play is I always try to play I always try to sequence break whenever I can, even in this game. But the problem becomes one thing that I have to basically essentially do is think of it from the noob mindset. Basically, this is a game that they're trying to appeal to like maybe a broader audience, probably.
Yeah.
So they're naturally not going to make it so brain taxing that essentially they're going to require you to master wall jump timing or something or other.
Yeah, which they've completely like gotten rid of wall jumps entirely.
Well,
Well,
like the thing is, there's only one spot in the entire game where I believe you are forced to actually wall jump, and even then, it's incredible. And even then, you could just spider ball your way up. Though, if you're smart, like other people, if you're smart and figure out that all you need to do is just mash A, then you'll just jump between the walls. And yeah, just do that.
Yeah. In terms of the level, I've also noticed the progression where it's like I have three tanks, right? 3 energy tanks, and even still, I feel like it's gotten a lot easier, which is the case with most Metroid games, but it just feels even more easy, if you know what I'm saying.
Because everything takes shitloads and deals shitloads of damage to you.
Like usually in a Metroid game, like just to go back to one in particular, like Fusion and Super, you don't start to feel the weight lift off your shoulders until about the 5th tank. Like there's like a slight bit of like the game's foot itself, like maybe the toes are left on you, right? Mm-hmm. And then it decides it wants to like ram its fist onto you and like try to squeeze you back down, but it can't at this point.
But you know, if I could say one thing at least about the progression, yes, it like for specifically story progression, it is not that brain taxing. It's not going to expect you to get good with wall jumps. It's not going to expect you.
Yeah, it's just trying to tell the story.
Infinite bomb jumps or anything like that. What it is going to do, though, is if you're trying to go for 100%, it is going to brain tax you as far as
completionist,
getting doing the puzzles for getting items and stuff, and I can actually appreciate that.
Yeah. Now,
it's like, all right, so if I want to fully complete the game, I'm gonna have to think. But if I want to just play the base game, I don't necessarily need to think too much. Just enough. Like I need to for me, it's like a cakewalk a lot of the time. Although my problem with with this game's progression is specifically and why I have to keep referring myself to, you know what? Think of this from the noob mindset and think, where would I go if I were just completely new at this game?
Yeah.
The reason I have to think that is because I admittedly actually do explore a lot of areas out of the intended order. So when I actually am playing this completely new Metroid game, it's like, all right, where do I go? And it's not like the kind of thing that I can just complain and say, oh, this is badly designed. It's like, no, it's designed right. I'm just breaking it in a way that technically it's not supposed to be, but since they left these mechanics in the game and there's nothing that actually gets me stuck, I can still do it.
Yeah, I see what
it's
you
like
mean.
If it's one thing,
it's the same case with Prime.
Yeah, it's like although it's a little less broken than in Prime, because in Prime you do get plot important items out of the intended order, or at least you can. In this game specifically, one way that this game gets around being falling into a trap of you got stuck essentially. The way that they get away from it is they put specific late game items that you're going to need to have in order to get certain items, blocks that can be broken by those specific items, even as far back as the cave area at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah,
so it's like
how we
they
think
basically
that it's a power bomb back in the caves.
And as far as plot important stuff goes, you can't sequence break your way past that, because you'll get to a point where it's like, oh, this part is blocked by screw attack blocks. I need the screw attack in order to actually progress through here. And if you're playing on your own for your first playthrough, and this is maybe your first Metroid game or something like that, you are not going to go to a point where you're actually going to be stuck because you actually played it out of order.
Yeah, and like I was trying to say earlier, it's because, and I feel like the reason they did it this way is because they're trying to tell a really old story, and they want to make sure everyone understands. Like, they don't want everyone to skip this game and go to Fusion to understand, because Fusion does tell the retelling a little bit, but it only tells the ending of what happened. Like how they got the Metroids to make that vaccine that they give you in Fusion.
Yeah,
that's how they tell this story.
They basically want to make it so that Like, if you just want to play the game, that's fine. But if you want to 100% the game, you're gonna have to get good, and I can appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
can
'Cause
appreciate
it's
that
like,
because I like a challenge. I like and
yeah,
and for people like us where we like to play this multiple playthroughs just to get better, increase our times, and speed
yeah,
run
increase your
through it.
speed.
You know,
Hmm.
it's good for us. And for the casuals out there, they'll be equally surprised because they get to see the full story and not feel like, well, oh boy, this is meant for like hardcore.
Hmm.
You know, it'll make them think a little bit. It'll make them think because of how much damage they take.
Yes, and I think that is in particular the one main reason why you take so much damage is because they want to punish noobs for it. But it's like
They want to make the
even
noobs.
veterans like me don't, even with this game's pretty decent controls and all that, the dodging mechanics aren't quite there yet.
Yeah, but at least they won't like. And I'm not trying to take a jab at Sonic, but at least they won't can do multiple versions of Sonic with like many alterations of the speed boost engine and be like, well, I'm not happy with this one either. You know, they'll be like, well, if it doesn't work, we don't keep it. If we thought it was bad for, well, if we thought it was good for this game but bad for the next game, we'll be like, okay, we'll just introduce something new. You know, but
One thing I want them to do is introduce the ability for me to use a D-pad, because like if I'm going back to the controls for just a second, the analog stick does not actually. The only thing the analog stick permits you to do is the free aiming system. Everything else would be perfectly fine on a D-pad.
oh hell, like let you have, and I'm saying this again for the new 3DS and new 2DS owners, have it to where the Aeon is on the nipple itself.
Yeah, I don't even care about that. If anything, I would be just fine with having to specifically, basically, just like be able to use the left analog stick to switch my Aeon and use the D-pad to move. Because here's the thing: if like I said, it's completely optional for as far as movement goes. Because like, if I move the analog stick, if I only tilt the analog stick very slightly, the only thing, like, it's not going to make me walk any slower. So it's like even the input itself is digital, as if it were a D-pad.
Yeah, the input itself is digital, and they've coded it in a way where the dead zone, where it doesn't activate, makes it react like a D-pad. Like, have you noticed that? Like, if you move it even a little bit, it does not move. Samus herself will not move.
You have to move it all the way to the very edge for it to actually
all the way.
move.
So at that point, why was the Aeon not put to the stick?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're gonna make them both D-pads, but one a more circular D-pad, why not just be like, well, they both work, but the Aeon could be on the C stick, the little C nipple.
I wouldn't even mind if basically if I hold L that it briefly switches the what do you call it, the left stick to being
360
like, to being the Aeon switcher and letting me move with the D-pad. Like, just have it be a modifier. Like, if I hold L, it swaps them. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
But that's not even the case here, and I actually just
That's
like
what I'm
that.
saying. I hope they come out with
combined
an update that fixes this.
with the fact that these controls are pretty decent, but also not perfect, like AM2Rs, and the fact that this game runs at 30 frames per second, you can actually feel like a bit of the struggle with how the controls work, especially considering like double tap down in order to morph is still a thing, and if anything, the most convenient way to morph without having to go out of your way.
Yeah. And I think
you get used to it, essentially.
And like I said at the beginning, like, this should be the set of controls that OG DS, 3DS owners are meant to play, because they have the limited button set. Mm-hmm. But they should have done was say, hey, anyone who bought this game, you have to update by getting this patch day one, because it gives you the ability to customize your controls, because you have all these extra buttons. So, you know,
and trust me, it's worth it.
It's worth it.
It would be worth it.
No one would, anyone who's played AM2R, which is the majority of the Metroid fan base, they would appreciate them, because having the option of a
AM2R
button,
did that. AM2R did it the entire time. It was like AM2R, you could customize any buttons you want.
Yeah.
Like how people play.
You can make it ridiculous. You can make it so not Metroid Control that it's ridiculous.
You can actually effectively play AM2R with a USB SNES controller, and I have done it. I rarely play it that way. I prefer to use the DualShock 4 controller.
I would actually probably play that shit with an 8-bit controller.
With an NES, I don't think it's possible with an NES controller. I
Well,
think that's the
no,
one thing it can't do.
no, the SNES,
Yeah, I have a. That's what I mean.
the
Like
little
I have
rounded 8-bit one.
Yeah, that's what I have.
I could probably do it if I set it to like classic controls, and then it might work out for Antuar. But like I said, in terms of this game, it would help, especially with the C stick, because I don't agree with tapping the C stick. If anything, that gives me more times to break my C stick because of how hard that I'm unintentionally tapping the thing down really fast to like make her go into a ball, and it kind of
Yeah,
slows down my progression because most time when you're playing shit like Fusion or Super or Zero, you can do it really fast and keep the momentum kind of going.
hmm
We can keep it kind of
exactly.
going.
Like you can get to the point where you can naturally double tap down on a D-pad
Like you can get to the
without
point
having to
where you
struggle
can
with it
jump
at all
midair,
or fumble
naturally
with it.
turn into a ball, and still keep the momentum going in that direction and not
Yeah, like
lose
how
any of
I'm
it.
playing. Like if I'm playing Super, I can morph midair simply by jumping and immediately pushing down twice. And I can technically still do that in this game. It's just awkward and feels weird to do with an analog stick
Yeah, I
or with
mean
a D-pad.
the only time pressing the button for the morph ball honestly made a little bit of sense was Prime Hunters
Mm,
because there weren't enough buttons, so obviously they had to put it on the screen. They made use of the screen.
yeah.
Um, but we're coming up on on the hour mark. Did you want to
Yeah.
talk about that article that we found?
Yeah, let's do that. But let's just do like our quick final thoughts on like the game itself.
Okay.
I feel like currently, yes, the game is good, and it gives me a little bit of hope for what do you call it? For
Like,
Metroid Prime 4.
yeah, like it gives me it
But
does give me hope for Metro Prime 4. Like how it's
but
gonna
I'm
turn out.
still going to stay cautiously optimistic about Prime 4.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that because it is the same director from the original Prime games, that he would be able to, do it justice. But the fact that it's being developed it's not being developed by Retro,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that kind of thing,
Retro did it
that
a lot of
just
justice.
that rubs me the wrong ways, because specifically they could essentially, if they had Retro doing the coding for it, they could have made Metroid Prime 4 look like Crisis,
And not run as shitty as Crisis can.
and it'll run at like 60 frames per second, and it'd be amazing. It would look amazing. It would play amazing, like Prime 1 did.
Honestly, it would look so polished you'd swear to God that this wasn't a Switch.
That's what I mean. It's like if you gave it to them, give them this powerful hardware, and told them make Metroid Prime again. It's like, because of the way that they loaded the rooms was so genius for Metroid Prime. It's like they could make the texture quality better. They could put so many polygons on screen. Like you just watch Digital Foundry's tech analysis of Metroid Prime. It's like, rather than specifically doing like bump mapping and texture detail for things, they'll straight up go and like carve out actual sections of the wall in actual 3D models to give it actual legit depth through it.
Hmm.
It's like,
So
if
like
you'll go to the walls and like the Chozo ruins and stuff, that's not textures that you're seeing. Like if you go up to the wall, it's actually a 3D model pushed in and all that, as if it's actually carved out and broken up.
hmm.
So it's like they had the attention to detail in those little things, and it's like they could polish it up so much and make it look so great. It'd be the perfect advertisement for the Switch. It's like, hey, this little thing can put out these graphics. Aren't you impressed?
And they'd be the best people to do it because it'd be like in the right hands, it could look like this.
In my opinion, Retro Studios is basically the best developer for developing, like, for optimizing for console games. Like Metroid Prime, the original Metroid Prime, is probably the best looking game on the GameCube. If
And
not,
and
one,
then
if at worst one of the best looking.
and then it ran at a constant 60 unless it was like a massive explosion. But then
And by massive explosion, I mean, if you're in one of those small corridors and like a shitload of those tiny little enemies following your visor, then the frame rate will drop. But like in literally any other situation, it just doesn't drop ever, and I like that. It's
Yeah,
like super
like
responsive all the time.
even when
That's
you're
amazing.
fighting like a mega huge boss, the frames don't even tank.
Mm-hmm. Like the only other time I think that the frames tank is like in the Omega Pirate cutscene, intro cutscene, but that's during a cutscene. It's not during gameplay.
Yeah,
It's like during actual gameplay, you basically never see the frames drop.
even though even though probably part of the reason why it's doing the frame drop though is because everything's run in game and it has to do that drastic cut to the Omega Pirate, then back to Samus,
Exactly. Yeah. There's
then
like
back to the pirate.
there's no real pre-rendered cutscenes.
It's just all like
in-engine.
when it takes over, it has to account for, hey, the player's not touching, and that's probably where the hiccup comes from.
Yeah. And it does, and in that kind of case, it just doesn't matter, basically.
Yeah, and the only other instance of a frame drop in that game is that one section where like that small little pathway of water that leads to like the whole, I guess, lake where you first encounter those poisonous mushrooms. It's on your way going towards the elevator to the little sand area. I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Chozo Ruins.
Yeah, the Chozo Ruins. It's like before you get to the boost puzzle.
Okay.
That plant. If you shoot the plant, the orange plant, the explosion makes the frames dip.
Well, yeah, and that's the only other situation, and that's only because it's like right next to other plants. Although in that kind of situation, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like in any case where the frame rate would matter, it's always going to be running at 60.
Yeah, the fight scenes like for the fights and shit, it doesn't matter because it's running so smooth. It doesn't.
That smooth.
Yeah, it doesn't yank you out of it.
Anyway, we're getting like, a little off topic. Yeah, it's like I'm liking this game so far. I haven't completely finished it. I just finished Area 5 right now. Like if I go look, does it? Yeah, it just lists the next area I'm at as Area 6.
Yeah, so you're reaching near the end, and I'm still like 4 layers behind you, because I'm in an area 2 subsection 2.
It says there's only 6. It says there's only 6 Metroids left.
So you're probably in the final area before you have to reach the final 10.
Yeah.
Because
getting back to our point though.
Yeah.
I really like this game. I'm liking it so far. I like the originality aspect to it. And it's like, at one point, you actually do have sort of a bit of a chase. Like, there's a bit of a chase scene at one point. And it, like, forces you to act on the fly and to, try and get through as fast as you can to get away from something. And that's where I feel like, that's where I feel in that situation, if there were any real problems or what's the word I'm looking for here? Like any real problems with the controls or anything like that. Any little shortcomings with the controls, that's what I'm looking for. It's like if there's any shortcomings for the controls, that chase section would specifically address all of them. But in my opinion, I went through the entire chase scene, and the only time I ever fucked up was because I fucked up, not because of the controls or anything. I felt like I was in complete control the entire time, despite the game running at 30 FPS, and I could do everything I could to get through that scene normally, basically. Yeah. You'll get to that chase scene too. It's actually pretty fun.
I think I know what you're talking about, because like someone was sending me videos because like they had a review copy already, and they were trying to spoil it for me because they knew I was a massive fucking Metroid fan, and they were like trying to show me this shit. I don't want to say it on this recording for anyone who hasn't gotten to it yet, but I know what you're talking about, but I haven't seen how to beat him. But when I'm gonna figure out my own. But when I do, it's gonna be fun.
The point is, like, it is a chase sequence, and in the chase sequence, you're followed the entire way, and it puts you like a bunch of little parkour challenges for you. It tests your
your reflexes,
skills, and reflexes to act on the fly. And if the controls had any shortcomings, you would definitely notice them in that kind of high pressure, high tension such kind of situation. And because I didn't, I feel like that speaks pretty good to the game's controls.
Yeah, and you're even more of a hardcore Metroid fan than I am, because we both played the same games, but you take it a little more serious than I do. I like to just look at it from the world building aspect, and then playing the game is like, oh my god, I'm drooling at the mouth. That I'm like playing as the famed bounty hunter,
Mm-hmm. But like the way that I always play is like once I got good with Zero Mission, once I got good with Fusion, once I got good with AM2R, I just try to blaze through as fast as I possibly can. I've never really taken to speedrunning Metroid. I've tried to get into Fusion speedrunning. I'm thinking I'm gonna crank it back.
I've only speed ran Zero. That's the only one that I want to do.
I just sort of naturally speedrun it.
Yeah, you kind of the way the structure is built, you kind of do naturally speed run it.
Once you've beaten it once or twice.
And that's what I want to do with this game, because there are sections in Samus Returns where I feel like I can. Aside from the Metroid fights, like once I'm able to beat them so many times that they become second nature, then the Metroid fights will become a speed run for me.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of like how I feel about it, I honestly like the game. I think the music's fucking great. Especially playing on a tiny ass little handheld. The music comes through so epically that like it's total fucking eargasm. It's like It's like the same level of eargasm that the Sonic Mania songs are doing to most people right now.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. And the combat the combat I guess slash hit aside,
I think I should really quickly mention this about the combat. I like the idea behind. I don't think I ever actually completed this thought back then, but like I do like the idea of the melee counter. But I feel like the enemies are like a bit bullet spongy otherwise. Like it's like the game basically encourages you to use the melee counter on them because it kills them so much faster than the other things.
Until you get like late game.
Until you get to late game where stuff starts doing one or two shots enemies basically. Or if you're like me and you just screw attack into them all the time.
Yeah, but I feel like
because that's even more efficient.
But I feel like especially like the combat, like for me, the combat is just like you could use the counter, or you can just go traditional. Traditional might be a little.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean by that. But the problem is like I feel like when you're trying, the way that they've emphasized it here is like your beam at the beginning does so little damage to them. It's like what's the point otherwise than using the melee counter? Like it feels like you're. Like the game is really pushing you to use the melee counter.
Oh yeah, because they want you to
much faster.
Yeah, because they want you to learn it, and I understand the direction that they're going in, but honestly, for me, sometimes I forget that I'm playing, a game with like that mechanic in it, and I'm just like, all I see is Metroid, and like all I see is the adventure ahead of me, and I'm just like, part of me wants to just shoot, move out the way, shoot, like an older like video games. And then when I'm reminded that by the flash that I can hit that button, I'm like, oh well, maybe I should hit that button. But part of me ignores the flash for like a couple flashes, and then probably like the third or second flash, I'm just like, okay, maybe I should do it.
Yeah, and like, okay, this might seem sort of similar to like a complaint that people had with like the new Doom game, where it's like, oh, there's all these canned animations, the
glory kill, the glory kills.
Like some people would make mention to them. It's like, wasn't this like a sort of similar criticism? It's like, no. Here's my argument with here's my argument against that. The glory kills are completely optional.
Yeah,
by the time that you get them down to enough health that they would be glory killable,
you could just shoot them in the head.
You could just shoot them and they're dead.
You could just shoot them and they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't want to glory kill every enemy in a room, then you don't have to. You can just shoot them dead. It's not like you counter them with a melee thing or whatever, and then they suddenly have much lower health. And here's the other thing with the melee counter. If you melee counter and then suddenly do something else or like aim in a different direction or something, suddenly the enemy also gets all their health that they lost from the melee counter back. Like if you try melee countering an enemy, then looking away and then looking back at them and starting shooting them again, they have their normal health back for some reason.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of odd because they're still dazed from the melee counter.
Yeah, exactly, because they'll stay dazed for like quite a long time.
They'll stay dazed for like 5 seconds.
And it's like, what's the point here if they still have the same amount of damage? It's like, oh, I looked away slightly, so now I don't get the super speedy kill. Instead, I get a kill that would have been the same speed, just
part of me also feels
a little
like
more boring since the enemy's not moving.
A part of me also feels like this is their attempt at like the glory kill system. Like, if you turn away, then you fucked it up. it's a little more brutal than the glory kill, because glory kill system lasts about like 5 seconds, and if as long as they're flashing, the glory kill can be enabled. But in this one, it's more of a punishing glory kill, or if you you don't do it,
But the problem is the punishment is boredom, and even people like me or Metroid veterans and all that, it just gets boring watching like accidentally pressing a button, and then suddenly the enemy's just sitting there as you're spamming at it for some reason.
Yeah, and I feel you on that.
It's like the way I looked at it. I'm starting to look at this game as essentially the AI in this game is akin to easy or normal mode AM2R, but with the damage of hard mode. And hard mode damage in AM2R is fucking.
It's brutal. It's brutal as shit.
Yeah, they hit you really hard on hard mode. I can't imagine what hard mode is in this game, like how much damage they deal.
Dude, I don't even want to fuck with fusion mode. As bad as I want those amiibo, I don't even. I'll tap it for fusion mode just to say I got it, but I don't know how well I'm gonna stack up fusion mode.
What is fusion mode?
So basically, you have to have one of the new amiibo that come out, and fusion mode is basically extra brutal. So there's normal, hard, and fusion. So fusion is pretty much nightmare. Does it give you the fusion suit? Yeah, too? You fight in the fusion suit, so you're literally kind of like fucked.
So in that case, it makes sense.
You're
it's even worse.
It's like playing 3 times the damage in fusion in this game.
Yeah. You want to know one thing I even tried to learn, tried to do with what's it fucking called? One thing I even tried to do with regards to like the melee counters, like I thought that maybe I might be able to animation cancel the counter, but it's kind of like Counter-Strike, where like if you reload your gun and then quick switch, the reload timer still goes through, essentially. Like if you were to basically melee counter, shoot, and then turn a melee counter again, it takes a bit of time in between them because it's still going through the timer for the animation of the what do you call it, the counter. Yeah. Basically, you can't just spam counter and then shoot and then counter again and then shoot again.
Yeah, it's kind of like punishing you for like if you fuck up a dodge roll and then think you can immediately dodge it out again. Like in Bayonetta, like if you miss the fucking dodge, you can't just expect to not get hit and then dodge and be safe.
It's basically like I tried to do the Metroid Prime missile spam thing where you would shoot a missile and then quickly press your B button and then shoot a missile again. You would roll between A and Y, A and Y, A and Y like that. Yeah. And you would be able to shoot missiles like twice or 3 times as fast. You can't do that here with the melee counter, unfortunately.
Yeah, but then again, it's a 2D game. It's it's not meant to be like Prime and stuff.
I get that, but still, it's like if I can do something at least to try and help mitigate that, I would like to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, overall for me though, combat-wise, even though the game's kind of like throughout its entirety, is trying to teach you the fucking X button, the little strike. I can't remember what they call it.
Melee counter.
Yeah, the melee counter. From that aside, it's a decent way to like it lets you play in the way that you think it should be played, aside from the add-ons. And I don't mind it too much because, I mean, most of the time you're gonna be messing with the power beam. Even though I would love to fuck shit up with the ice beam, I get why they did what they did with the ice beam, because there are gonna be some sections of the game where you're gonna need the ice beam to freeze an enemy and make them as a makeshift platform. And even then, like some enemies are like so small, like the enemies that come out of the ground. And then they kind of like swing on their way downwards, back and forth. In the original, they were huge.
Yeah, in the original they were huge. Although in Fusion and AM2R they were scaled down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes sense in this game that they're this small because like even in Fusion they specifically already toned down their size. That was like the thing with that Metroid 2 wanted to do, like to specifically have more detailed sprites. They made the sprites bigger, and that kind of fucked up the gameplay.
Yeah, it did.
It's like, yeah, Samus looks nicer, but hey, she's taking up like an 1/8 of the screen.
You wanna
Let's go through this article.
Go through the article. Or okay.
So I was basically going through and looking for a quick guide because I was sort of stuck on one of the areas where when it came to specifically locating like the final Metroid or something.
Yeah.
And and then I looked through and found this one article. You can give them the link in the description. Like I'll just send you the link here again just in case. It's called Metroid Samus Returns: 5 Tips Before Your Mission on SR388 Begins. I always like to look at these kinds of articles and like videos and stuff made by these gaming outlets or whatever, just to laugh at them because they're usually wrong.
Yeah.
Although this guy who wrote this one, I think, is just sort of a bit of a moron and sort of a bit like he mentions obvious shit. Like let's just go through it right here. The first one he does: do most of your backtracking towards the end. Okay, I can understand why you would put this tip here because it's like, okay, you're gonna be new to the series. This is like a newer Metroid game you're gonna pick up, and it's like, all right, you maybe at first you're thinking, oh, I got a new item. Let's go and immediately backtrack to get some items. It's like, no,
Yeah.
if you realistically want to have the easiest and less time-consuming time, wait until you get to the end, get your extra. Once you have all your abilities, it'll make going through and getting all those extra items a lot easier. That's fine.
Honestly,
Although
though,
personally though, I still ended up actually backtracking multiple times.
honestly though, he is also wrong for this point though, because in this game alone, Nintendo has put in ways so that you can backtrack without any problem. The teleporter and the elevators, but the teleporters are what you're really going to want to use to backtrack.
The teleporters are a godsend. I can also really appreciate that.
And
being able to just warp back.
The teleporters were actually, for those of you who haven't played A2R, I feel like they saw that in AM2R where when we act,
there were not teleporters in AM2R.
It was a quick travel, and I think this is what they were inspired by after seeing AM2R.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's like that one.
It's like these are pipes all along the system of SR388, and instead of being a teleporter, like a mystical Chozo teleporter, they made like a network in the AM2R version of just pipes and pumps.
I actually really I liked it, but I like both games' solution to that.
Yeah, I like their solution to backtracking, and I think this is where this article also gets this wrong. It's a hell of a lot easier than any past Metroid game to backtrack. So it encouraged people when they get a new item. Hey, I want to go back to Area 1 and see if this new item works with anything that I missed.
All right, now let's go down a bit more. Scan pulse often. No shit, genius.
Yeah, I know.
This is incredibly obvious.
I didn't agree with this either.
It's like I get you don't agree with this, but it's like this is so obvious that if you don't immediately think, oh, I'm having some trouble with this puzzle here, let me just scan pulse because I'll probably reveal a block. Here we go. I can see this.
Well, no, I didn't agree with this as a point. Like, of course, they give you the option and then give you a meter. You can scan pulse as much as you want as long as you kill enemies. But I also don't agree with it in the sense that since I am a bit of a purist, I hate having the scan pulse active. As soon as I got the lightning armor, I no longer ever want to touch the scan pulse.
I use the scan pulse just to make my life a little bit easier when I'm playing it, but that's just me.
Like, maybe in a speed run, I'll use it. But on my first run of the game, I want to be surprised.
Honestly, probably you won't actually use it in a speed run, because when you think about it, speed runs are generally actually really linear when you think about it, because they always like try to get the best kind of possible route down, and you're not going to be stopping the scan pulse a lot of the time.
Well, it does reveal
bombing the areas because you know where the areas are going to be.
Yeah, but I mean, for like maybe like your first speed run, it does reveal some of the pathway for you.
Yeah, I guess maybe the idea being that
being able to like see the pathway so you can keep going.
Repeated ones, you could realistically time your scan pulses that you would be able to find, like, be able to have a better indication of where the blocks are specifically.
Yeah, so like the secret pathways to get to somewhere different, or to do this and do that, or maybe just find the path you're looking for in general. Like maybe you forget like a quick second. You're like, okay, is it up or down or left or right?
Yeah. Or like my idea would be like you do it at the beginning of a room or something like that.
Yeah, like the beginning, and then you're like
you get like a visual indication of where the
blocks
are.
It's like, how do I want to branch out?
Exactly here. I need to place a bomb exactly here.
Yeah, or like how you want to branch out and how you want to go about the situation really quickly. Like get a quick reminder in your mind or something like that for a speed run.
Yeah, and now this next point is just flat out wrong, and it even contradicts itself. Use the ice beam on Metroids and not much else. Then you go down here a little bit further. If you go through the paragraph, let's read through it. This is common knowledge to hardcore Metroid fans. The namesake creatures of their series are weak to your ice beam, but Samus Returns is a lot more Metroids than you typically encounter, and they come in many types. Now, really quickly, I'd like to mention, Metroid veterans who play this game are going to be thrown off by the fact that the ice beam actually does work pretty effectively against these.
Yeah,
because they didn't.
Because they're only supposed to work. They're only supposed to work on the Metroid larva from the Prime, exactly. and the second phase.
But let's say, for sake of example, this is a noob reading this. You'll get to this point. It's like and they come in many types. For all of them, you'll want to use the ice beam to freeze them over, or bring them to the ground. Then you can follow up with missile shots. To remind you, the point was use the ice beam on Metroids.
And not much else. But they say missiles.
Exactly.
So it's like, which is it? Is it not much else, or is it missiles? Because the way this
next part is just like learn every enemy's counter timing. There's no real timing. It's just hit them the moment they're getting close to you after that little flashes happen. The only timings you need to learn are for the Metroids.
Yeah, and to go back to the previous point, I mean, in order to beat the Metroids, right? And even though I'm not all the way into the game like you are, but it's common knowledge, especially in this game, once you freeze them, you have to shoot them with something else. And and in the original, what else do you shoot them with? What else hurts them really bad? Fucking missiles.
In the original Metroids, or
Prime does it.
Prime, every game, or well, actually, in Prime, to be fair, you can just shoot missiles out there.
You can spit missiles, you can spit missiles, but it's better to have something that can freeze them and keep them in place.
It is still faster shooting at ice and then hitting it with a missile.
Yeah, it's better, but it's better to like freeze them in place, which is where the ice beam comes into play.
To quickly go into this point, though, like I said, Metroid veterans are going to be kind of surprised at how effective the ice beam actually is at countering the normal Metroids. Because like, next time that you go in to fight a Gamma Metroid, switch to your ice beam, charge it up to full, and then fire it at their little underside. It will freeze them, and the Gamma Metroid will immediately go into its grounded form. In which case, by the way, you can shoot the mouth of the Gamma Metroid to deal damage to it with a missile.
Yeah.
I did not know that for a while.
And that's actually
shot it. It's like, oh shit, I could do damage this way.
And that's what I was telling you last night.
Okay. Because like my boss strategy now is freeze the underside of the Gamma, pull out super missiles, spam. Basically, that's it. And it actually does kill them fairly quickly.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling you last night when we were talking about should I test this theory? Because when you were reading this article, I was like, "There's no way." So when I saw the underbelly, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try it."
All I knew is that like you could, I would shoot at them. I would like shoot them a bit with the ice, and it would like give the little flashes.
It would aggro them, yeah.
But it's like, okay, what's this doing? It's not actually doing anything.
Until you finally think, charge it.
Okay, charge it, bam, frozen.
Because that's how all the other enemies work. Like, you know how you shoot normal enemies and they just freeze for like a second, but when you charge it, they freeze for about 7 seconds.
No, they freeze even longer than that. It's like 10
like 10 or so. Yeah.
It takes a while for them to unfreeze.
It takes a while for them to like move again.
Get the idea to do that, but like, if you're like I said, if you're a Metroid veteran.
Yeah, like if you're a hardcore Metroid veteran,
you're going to be thrown off. Like, specifically, when it comes to these Metroids in particular, you're not expecting ice to work.
Yeah, you're going to be seriously thrown off because in the lore, like, the only ones that are affected are first and second stage and the larva.
And I love this fifth fight. Don't tilt over boss fights.
Yeah,
that last tip is just funny to me.
This point is, like, just ridiculous because any game, you're going to tilt over a boss fight.
Yeah, it's like that's literally advice you can make for.
You can make that for Dark Souls, Bayonetta, Smash, anything, especially for Dark Souls. We watched Brimstone tilt over Dark Souls last night, and I boot up the game and I stare at it and I automatically tilt. Just staring at it makes me tilt.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't touch Dark Souls for that reason.
Tilt in the way that you like it. Damn it.
At least when I play this game, when I tilt over a boss, like especially in AM2R, when I tilt, it's in a way that I like it because at least you know that it's a challenge and you know how to beat him, but because the bosses are so fucking mischievous.
Like I would rather, like a lot of people would say, like I'd rather not have it be that I messed up or something that like pisses me off. Like, oh, people get tilted over.
It's like, oh my
Like,
god, I did
oh,
this.
my aim went out the window, my skill went out the window, or whatever, and I fucked up. It's like, no, I would rather have it be that if I lost an engagement, I lost the engagement because I wasn't skilled enough to hit the shots or whatever in like a multiplayer shooter, not because of some bullshit lottery had an extra headshot or whatever from like a running gun pistol in CS:GO or
Yeah.
a random really lucky spread pattern out of a shotgun that gives you an insane one-shot kill on me. That's
and at least with Samus Returns, you get that sense of the first run, you know your ass is gonna die on the first time you fight the boss. But as you keep playing it, you learn the pattern.
I'll admit,
you learn how they move.
Exactly, and like I'll admit, even from a guy who likes playing hard games, who's played like the entire Zero series multiple times, I died quite a few times in this game because I'm not quite used to it yet, and I didn't know all the boss tricks. And it's like once you get used to those boss tricks, it's like what, these guys are actually pretty easy once you get used to it.
Oh yeah, and especially like I feel like I forget which one it is, the one that walks and can fly. I think it's what the Gamma. Yeah, that one was a little bit easier than the Zeta or the Beta or whatever. Or the
Zeta
Alpha
is the next one out.
Okay, well, the
Zeta
Alpha.
Is the next one out. Oh,
the one before.
Alpha?
Yeah, that one was a little more easy than the Alpha because the Alpha can just charge you. I have more difficulty with Alphas, especially the electric Alphas.
Well, I mean, all I do is just just keep jumping and just wait for them to.
Well, no, it's not that. It's like if you jump at the wrong time, like if you jump too late, the electricity will touch your feet and you get damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, the Alphas are more challenging.
I personally had more trouble with Gammas because of their annoying pattern initially until I figured out the ice beam trick was like ice beam them and then spam into their mouth. Just don't bother trying to use the precise aiming to hit them in the bottom of the
honestly, I like trying to use the precise aiming to like whenever they're flying to hit them with a missile on their underbelly.
I used to do that until I figured out ice beam, where I just use precise aiming to hit the ice beam.
Well, I do it when they're still flying. Like while they're still flying, I have a chance to like throw in like 1 or 2 missiles to like damage them and then like let them fall down.
Yeah, that's true.
But I feel like the ones after those are gonna be a bitch for me because they like to lunge at you, and especially in AM2R with that one room. If they lunge at you and they kick you out the room, you have to restart the whole boss fight.
Oh,
you know which one I'm talking about? Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about, and yes.
I feel like that's gonna fuck me over.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen?
Zetas are pretty easy, actually, honestly. Because
in AM2R, they're a nightmare.
Yes, they are. Even on like easier I haven't actually played the full version of AM2R on easy mode. I've only played it on normal mode and hard mode. And even on normal mode, oh my god, those things are a bitch to deal with.
Shit.
Zetas are a bitch to play
I remember
against.
when I saw them, and I did this on stream too. And I wish that I took it from Beam back when Mixer was Beam. When I saw like the Zetas, it freaked me the fuck out. It freaked me the fuck out.
The xenomorph looking thing.
Like I screamed a little bit. I was like, "What the fuck?" Like I knew they were terrifying, but Jesus Christ, the sprite work made me like lose my shit.
I love their AM2R sprite work so much. It really does.
And then just like we're talking a little bit away from Samus Returns, but that monster that's like inside the Federation ship when you finally find the ship and you get the elevator to it, that little alien creature that's in there that broke free of its tube, that one freaked me out the hardest for some reason. It just came out of nowhere and I was like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck? And like I'm just shooting at it, like I'm just like, I don't want to die. What the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
I want to have that.
I also love the the redesigned sprite for the Omega Metroid in AM2R. It also looks pretty nice.
I wanna have that one moment at least in this game. Like, I know for you probably didn't have that moment yet, but I know I'm a little bit different in terms of like what can actually scare me depending on how they come about it.
I can't wait to see what Omegas look like in Samus Returns. Honestly,
I just want to get to the point where I get to the Parasite Queen. They're both about the same size. The Queen Metroid, and hearing the music because I know what it sounds like, and I've heard. And then you hear the AM2R version, so I want to hear how they go about the remix in Samus Returns, because like that is like one of the most engaging boss fights in terms of soundtrack.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention. I can appreciate, and this is also another really good design choice. I believe on their part. If you die outside of a boss room, you spawn right outside the boss room instead of back at your last save point.
And also, you could take advantage.
Really like that.
You could take advantage of that even further, and say you had slightly a little bit of health, while the enemies that are outside the door, you just hit them and you take their health, go back in. If you die, then just keep farming that for health instead of going down and lose more health coming back up.
Yeah, I really do like that design choice. It's like, oh, you died? Okay, you're right outside the door to the Metroid room. So you're never at a point where you're like stuck or something like that.
I mean, I miss.
And you're never at a point where like just because you didn't save right before the boss fight, you have to go through all of that backtracking again.
I mean, part of me misses that kind of backtracking because that encouraged me to get faster at it.
I know, but trust me, you don't miss it.
Well, I mean, if you were to play the original, yeah, you wouldn't miss it.
No. Like, I don't miss it because of like things that happened to me in like Prime 2.
Oh no! In Prime 2, that's where I started to like have like just the most fun time wanting to start all over again because it's just like, okay, how fast can I kill you?
Metroid Prime 2 and fun in the same sentence? What are you talking about?
Prime 2 was just as fun to me as Prime 1, honestly. Like, I know you don't like it because it seemed kind of muddy and this, and I know we talked about this the other night about the light and the dark world and shit.
I like this. Fuck the boss fights in Prime 2.
I mean, Prime 2, like, my most memorable boss fights in Prime 2, though, is gotta be fucking Quadrillix and
Quadraxis.
Yeah.
And my only problem with Quadraxis is that his fight drags on too long, in my opinion.
But, I mean, it does drag on, but for me, what keeps me going is his music.
Fight. To be fair, it is an epic fight. His music is pretty good. And, yeah, but I feel like the fight just drags on just a little too long for my taste.
Yeah.
That's sort of like my big issue is, like, if the boss fights aren't ridiculously hard for no good reason, they take way too damn long otherwise. They just drag on for some godforsaken reason in Prime 2. And I'm not going to get into like a rant about that here.
Yeah. We're not going to do that here, but just for comparison's sakes and all that shit. But I mean, is there anything else we want to cover? Anything else we want to cover for Samus Returns?
I don't think so at this point. At least not where I'm at currently, because I haven't finished the game yet.
I haven't seen too much, and you've seen way more than me. So, and I mean, you said some things. I know you tried to like cover up some things.
It's a very small detail, but I like how there's actually a specific percentage counter that you can see on your map of each area that you've explored.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I like it because
you go back to your map menu and then click A, like click on the little map area and then click A on it. You can actually like click on different areas and then go into their maps.
Now does that account for like items and the Metroids killed there?
No, it doesn't account for Metroid. I don't think it accounts for Metroids killed there because like I'm clicking back into like my lowest percentage area is area 2, and that's at 38.9%.
So that must be items.
Yes, it must be. I'm fairly certain it's items. It also tells you, and I also like the fact that with the map system they give you markers that you can put down so you can
go back.
Yeah, exactly. And they remember them between the maps. And even like if you go back to like the map screen, like I said, it shows you the percentage, but it also shows you how many of those little things you have placed down in each area. You're limited to 10 per area, which kind of annoys me because it's like, you know what, why can't I have more than 10? Like,
but it's like since it encourages backtracking, you're gonna want to go back and then you're gonna go get those things and you're gonna replace them and then use them somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And I do like the idea that like the map screen has been updated to be more
more
useful,
Super Metroid and
more convenient.
It's more convenient and it actually the way the map system is actually kind of built, it reminds me of like a little Super Metroid but more Zero.
I personally wish that you could zoom out. Although I don't really, because it's all sprites and all that on the map screen, I can see why it's not specifically already put in there. So
yeah,
because being able to zoom out would be nice, but alas, not meant to be.
No, yeah. I mean, you can't always have everything.
It's not bad for it. And I really do like this. I believe this is like, in my opinion, the best map screen they've ever made for a Metroid game. So.
Yeah, and I
So
mean,
yeah.
it's starting and like with the bottom screen being all cluttered. It's nice to have, like, I mean, as much as I want to have like the missile counters and the tank counter on the main screen, I
Yeah.
understand why the screen has to be so clean.
I can definitely agree with that. I can understand and I can appreciate the fact that the top screen is clean, but personally, I would like to have at least maybe the option patched in to have my health and missiles and indicators for that stuff on the top
Even if
screen.
it's in the corner,
Because
like the bottom
one,
corner.
yeah, even if in tiny ass font in the top right or like bottom right corner or something like that,
And they don't even.
I would like to be able to see it because, like, here's the thing: when I'm in the middle of a Metroid boss fight, all I'm looking at is the top screen. I am not looking at the bottom screen at all. Because here's what I do in a Metroid fight: I select which weapons I'm going to be using. If I'm in like a Gamma Metroid fight, I immediately switch to Ice Beam, hold R, and then switch myself manually over to Super Missiles. And I basically know that I'm going to be using this the entire fight. This is all that's going to be happening. So I'm going to hold R. I'm going to shoot. So if I can't see my missile count, I will never specifically know until I visually see it on my screen that I'm firing normal missiles now instead of super missiles, that I've run out of super missiles.
Yeah.
So I like having the indicator on the top screen so I can just quickly take a very slight quick glance over to like a part on the top screen because I'm not going to be looking at it on the bottom screen normally.
Yeah.
It would mean I would simply like for that to be a thing to have it on the top screen as an option. I would like that to be patched in.
And I
At this moment,
think.
it's not bad. It's just a little pet peeve of mine.
Well, I think if they were to patch it in, honestly, they could do like the normal like 99 for the base tank, right? And then do like the purple indicator for a tank itself, and then have X and then the number of tanks you have left available.
Yeah, I don't mind that. That would work. It doesn't need to
It doesn't need to have
be
all the tanks filling
it
up the
doesn't need to
screen.
be a long line across your screen. And I
Yeah.
believe that that's why they specifically put it on the bottom screen because it's like, okay, you have like this giant like if you go back and look at Super Metroid, the entire top of the screen sort of cuts off even more of the aspect ratio, specifically to be able to look at how many missiles you have, how many super missiles you have, and being able to select between your 5 different extra weapons and
Yeah.
being able to see your health and all that. Like
But
the
then
entire top of the screen is
yeah,
dedicated to
and
that.
and in a way, it just becomes the aspect ratio.
Yeah, and like I never thought that was a bad thing. No one who played Super Metroid thought that was specifically a bad thing.
Yeah.
But this is technically a step
And I
forward.
mean,
Just a bit
technically,
of this one that requires you to get used to.
technically, it worked in Zero and Fusion, so it's like, and those were even
Yeah,
tinier screens than the
those are even
3DS.
tinier screens. Didn't even show as much. I think no, whatever. I would appreciate that. I think it's because it's a 3D game.
Yeah, I think it's just like the differences
It's
in the engine, then they have to. Maybe they tried the Zero Super route,
and
and
then
they're
it's
like,
like
it didn't work.
maybe this doesn't seem to work.
Maybe like
It's
they
like maybe
tried it in like
maybe it's because
testing
of
and it
like all
didn't work.
maybe it's because of the tiny enemies and like maybe the HUD elements might accidentally cover up an enemy's
Up top, and you can't see
flash.
them flash. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
because even when
So
they're
it's like
above you and you can see like a tiny bit of them, you can see like a few pixels of white flash, and you're like,
yeah. Okay,
okay,
I can do the melee counter.
yeah.
But like if they had the HUD there, it might in some cases block it off.
And that's
So
why I
I can
understand. Yeah,
understand why for the base game it doesn't do that. But I would like to have the option patched in as a thing. It's like, all right, if you want to have this, you can have like a very tiny, very minimalistic HUD in the bottom right corner of the screen that shows you your health and shows you your missiles and shows you your super missiles. That's all I'd like to see,
yeah.
personally.
But
In my opinion, like obviously going off topic here,
no, you got,
Metroid Prime in my opinion did it the best. Because like, and obviously I know that's a
oh
3D
yeah,
game
with like the
with
where you're in the helmet and everything's on the side of
exactly
like the cheek area of the helmet,
exactly because
and
like the majority of the screen real estate is dedicated to you being able to see
through her
essentially.
perspective.
Yeah, and you also any HUD elements that are there are one as minimalistic as they can while also having some creative detail and also translucent. So even though they are there, you can clearly see through them.
Yeah,
And that's it. Like you have a little danger icon there for like
yeah.
no reason.
For
It's
like
just there to
like
be.
magma
It's
and
just
acid.
Yeah, it's just for fun, basically. But you also have, your missile count on the right that's like both a bar and a number, and I always appreciate that.
Yeah.
And all that kind of thing. And yeah, I like having HUDs like that. You have your health at
It's
the
a
top,
very,
which
it
has
actually
very
is a
indicate
really creative HUD, and I like it.
you can very clearly tell if your energy tank has been used up. Like there's a very clear difference between an energy tank that is empty and an energy tank that at least has some energy in it, basically. Like you have the bar that shows your actual health with the number for it. You have the each energy tanks, and as your energy tanks are going down, they very clearly go from a bright color to a very dark color. So you can
It
definitely
goes from
know
like
exactly
blue to
when
gray.
yeah, you essentially know exactly what's going on at all times. Your awareness is always there, and you can always just do a quick little glance and see it there. And I would appreciate, even if it's like a very minimalistic bit,
And
just
in
allow
a
me to have my HUD in the bottom right, so I can just do a quick glance and see it there.
and in a way, since we're off topic on Prime for a second, in a way, the way that Retro designed the HUD, and this is kind of why I want them to do it again, because I want to do a new.
It curves with her helmet.
It curves with her helmet, but not only that, it makes you feel as if you're her, and that you're in the suit. So when you look up, it's like you mid-fight trying to see, can I survive this fight or not?
Yeah. And like that's another thing. Like I mentioned the danger monitor. Like I said, it's completely useless essentially, but it's a nice little attention to detail because like
it warns you.
If you had a visor like that, if you were Samus Aran,
you wouldn't want danger to be on the fucking screen blocking your field of view. You'd want like a sound and a bar to see. It knows you're in danger, and once like the bar will reach a point where it's like, yeah, if it's in the low area, it's not gonna warn you. It's safe for you. There's a little bit of toxicity, but the suit protects you. But when it reaches the top, and it goes from
it doesn't actually even blare either. It's like once it starts getting to the point where it's like actually sort of dangerous, it like it does a little very small warning, a small but distinctive warning noise.
It's like ding, ding, ding.
It's like no, it doesn't even do it multiple times. It like just does little.
It does it once, but like if you like.
And if you go away from that and come back, it does it again. Yeah, but like it doesn't just constantly do it as if it's ringing in your ears.
Yeah, it like does the one ring and it's like, yo, you're about to step into some lava. Watch the fuck out.
All right, fam. That good information. It's like, yeah, it's a little HUD element that when you think about it, you don't necessarily need.
But at least it's better than most like sci-fi adventures where it's like danger all across the fucking HUD and you're like blind and you're like, I can't shoot my fucking target. Thanks, guys.
Who designed this shit?
At least with this design, you're like, it's minimalistic. Anything that could damage you, anything that could damage you, burn you, melt you, anything like that. Anything that this thing is programmed to tell you, it will tell you with a minimalistic ding and a bar that tells you how high the threat actually is.
Yeah, and not specifically just that. It's like it's minimalistic enough, but also tells you all the information you need. That's in my opinion the perfect designed HUD that you could get.
Yeah, and, especially for 3D.
Great for Metroid Prime, yes, obviously.
And I kind of wish they had it almost the same in Hunters, because they did have a 3D element, like a 3D perspective with Hunters as well, and it looked a little like the Prime 1 through 3 HUD, but it wasn't quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah, it's like 4 for us. But is there anything else you want to talk about for this game?
Honestly, I think we covered most
of what we can like cover, I guess. Because we don't want to say too much.
Yeah, it's 2 hours, right? We've been going on for.
We've been going for about an hour and 40. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, like yeah, this is a long video, but I like just to quickly recap. I think this game is good. I don't think it's worth $50 right now. It's $50 currently, right?
I believe so. 40 or 50. I got it for cheaper because I got it on Amazon Prime for pre-order.
Wait until a price drop. And honestly, with regards to Nintendo and Metroid, it's probably not going to take that long for a price drop to happen.
Well, if this one sells well, it'll stay that way for a while.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, I want this to sell well.
Wait until it's like $30 or $40 before 30, maybe $40 maximum before you buy it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, $40. Yeah.
I do hope that this game sells well. Personally,
I want it to sell well because I don't want I don't want Metroid to be a 3D Samus in visor only perspective type of
Yeah,
adventure.
I want
to
to
see
2D as well as 3D.
because I don't want Dread to be created as a Prime. I want Dread to be a Zero Mission.
I want another 2D game. I will admit, even as someone whose favorite game of all time is the original Metroid Prime, I do still want to have 2D Metroids.
Because you can't if we don't have the layout like Samus Returns or AM2R or Super or shit like that, then that's cutting out the part of the legacy in a way. Because some of these games are most memorable in 2D.
2D, yeah.
Well,
the most memorable 3D moment for Samus was basically Prime 1.
Was Prime 1, and it's all of the game itself.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some gems in Prime 2. Prime 3 maybe like one or two.
Yeah, if I can say one thing about this game, if this is the if this game sells well and this becomes the basis off which they start making the 2D games, I think that it's going in a good direction.
It is, yeah, I agree.
It's not a perfect game, but it would definitely.
And even if they
multiple more revisions, more games, more polish, I feel like this could be a very good little 2D design test essentially.
And even if they want to rush it, even if they want to rush out a story because they feel like they don't want to take too fucking long with 3D models and make them do whatever, they could always fall back on the sprite design. I mean, they have sprites that they could honestly reuse. The Samus sprite, they can honestly they can choose between Samus sprites.
And technically speaking, they can just use the AM2R assets.
Yeah, they could be
and the AM2R engine too.
And they could be like, "Yo, I know we DMCA'd your ass, but can we pay you for your hard work and can we use these sprites for the next Metroid game?"
Not even just that. They can just they've already said that they can just they would give the project.
Yeah, they would give it. Yeah, but I mean, it would be a little bit of a sweeter deal if they said, "Hey, I know you guys are fans. Could we help you sweeten the deal a little bit? We know we fucked you over."
Mm-hmm. But it's and I would, if they do actually use the AM2R engine, I would really much appreciate that, because I'm going to say this one thing right now. AM2R's engine is the best 2D Metroid engine ever. Super Metroid's engine, it has some problems, obviously, and I get that those problems and then
Fusion and Zero kind of
tricks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Fusion and Zero Mission kind of improve upon the Super engine.
To be fair, while Super Metroid's engine having those problems allowed you to get those tricks, the controls are not there just yet. They're not perfect. All the float. I really hate the floatiness of Super Metroid. It's that's one of the aspects I truly dislike about Super Metroid is how floaty Samus is in that game. But the way that AM2R did it was basically it took the complicated nature and a bunch of the tricks that you could do with Super Metroid's controls, while also putting it on the Zero Mission engine's tightness and made it even more responsive than that. So it's in my opinion, I feel like the AM2R engine is the best 2D Metroid engine you could possibly make.
Yeah.
And if they make it if they make another one, obviously they're not going to make another one for the 3DS, because by that point the Switch will be out, so they can make another 2.5D one.
Honestly, they could.
If the 3DS were still relevant, they could make it actually run at 60 FPS if they were using a sprite design and using AM2R's engine.
Honestly, though, at this point, I feel like the direction is Switch all the way, and this is this is the handheld. So the next handheld Metroid is going to come out on the Switch.
It's going to be coming out on the Switch, yeah, alongside Prime 4
alongside Prime 4,
3D ones.
Because you think about it, if they do a sprite base,
I believe at this point, I'm willing to say that AM2R. What am I talking about? Samus Returns is probably going to be their last big release on this system. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good one to go out on, honestly.
It's the perfect one to go out on, because not only that, it shows that they're willing to keep trying Metroid, and they put another big name besides the one that we're always used to and the ones that most Nintendo fans are like, oh my god, another Zelda, another Mario, it's great, but where's the ones that we don't see, like Star Fox, fucking Metroid, fucking, there's a few
Star Fox probably has the most remakes I've ever seen in the game series.
Oh my god, they do. I want something else.
Star Fox 64 is a remake of the original Star Fox.
And then fucking Star Fox Zero is a reimagining of 64.
And Star Fox 64 3D exists.
Star Fox 64 3D is the remake, I think.
Yeah, it's another remake of Star Fox 64, which is a remake of the original Star Fox, and then you have what do you call it?
Because it's Star Fox
Zero, which is just another remake of the same story that also happens to have stuff from Star Fox 2, which was unreleased.
Yeah, because it's Star Fox. Star Fox 1 Champion, then 64, then 3DS, and then 0. So that's like what? That's a retelling like 4 fucking times?
You're retelling the same story multiple times.
Like at least
I feel like 0 probably at that point was like the most complex it ever got.
Yeah. At least with 0, it's not like we're gonna just like half-ass this game. No, we're actually gonna change some shit about the story and say that it's just a reimagining and we can do whatever the hell we want in the game.
2,000 years later.
Or set up keyboard and mouse controls like I did.
Yeah, but in conclusion, it's a great game. I think we can both honestly sit here and say we recommend it. Especially since it's an overhaul of its Game Boy counterpart.
Like I briefly said before, if this game sells well and this ends up being the direction they go in for more 2D Metroid games afterward, I feel like this is a good direction.
And honestly,
more polish to this core, and this could be pretty good.
And honestly, as a Metroid fan, I think I speak for both of us when I say this. I am tired of this series having so few sales that Nintendo doesn't know what the fuck to do with it. I want this to be the changing point, not Prime 4. I want Samus Returns to be the tipping point that this game floods the market in terms of sales, and we get more 2D games of this shit often. I'm tired of seeing Zelda and Mario take the fucking spotlight. Kirby barely fucking shows up now too. If anyone's ever noticed Kirby's starting to fade. So we need to support not only Mario and Zelda. We need to start supporting Samus, Metroid, Samus, Donkey Kong, Kirby, fucking. If they ever make another fucking Earthbound,
F-Zero, anybody?
F-Zero needs to come back, and Star Fox. I mean, yes.
They're not gonna bring back F-Zero. You want to know why? Because the best one was made by Sega.
Yeah.
GX was made by Sega.
And that sucks. But, in terms of Metroid, this one needs to sell well. They need to know that as many fans as are out there, all the newbies need to know what we go through as fans. Because
basically vote with your wallets. In my opinion, I would never actually tell you to vote with your wallet on something that's like, oh, you need to buy this game because
we said so.
Or it's a part of this series and like you need to support the series to show Nintendo we want more. It's like, no.
Like honestly, if you want to,
I would never tell you to buy a game specifically for that reason. I'm telling you to buy this game because this is a good game.
Like honestly, if you want to,
worth the purchase.
If you want to try before you buy, if you have a 3DS, if you have a new 3DS, go buy Super Metroid for cheap. It's like $7.
Yeah.
That is your best. That is your best gauge. To anyone listening, that is your best gauge on Samus Returns because Super Metroid, Fusion, matter of fact, I will leave a link to where AM2R still resides. If you want to try Samus Returns for free, to get a gauge, go try AM2R. If you don't like AM2R, you might not like Samus Returns.
One thing I can one thing that's really convenient for you, you can buy Super Metroid on the 3DS for $8.
Yeah. So those are your two games that you could try on your 3DS. But in order to play Super Metroid, I have to warn all of you listening, it requires the new 3DS and 2DS. But if you have those, try it.
Yes, definitely.
It honestly feels like a combination of that and AM2R.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really needs to sell well because I'm tired as one of the many dedicated Metroid fans seeing my favorite franchise. Like this shit to me is like watching fucking Terminator all over again and feeling like the fucking rush.
Samus Returns is only $40.
Yeah, Samus Returns is $40. I got it for like cheaper because Jamie had Prime and he got it as a birthday gift for me.
Alright, fair enough.
When you pre-order on Prime, you get it for like 20% off or something like that. And it's $40. So if it's not much of a dip. I mean, you're saving $20 versus buying like a normal $60 game anyway. But if you really gotta wait for a sale, wait for it. But if you really want to gauge it, I'll leave you a link to AM2R.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to find a way to host it through a sharing site because I have the files saved. But
I have it too.
But
I have the latest updated version of it too, which is 1.1.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I still play 1.0 just until I get to that point where
Dude,
I can see the thing
I'm
that's
not
broken.
sure actually where they are, but I know I have.
I have them both separated into
I
files.
have almost every demo downloaded on my computer somewhere in one.
I don't have the
drives.
demos, but I've seen the demos on YouTube.
I've got plenty of the demos. I've got all. I'm pretty sure I have all of them. In fact, if you want to know real quickly how long I've been following the AM2R project, way back when he made a little sort of demo for AM2R called Metroid Confrontation.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Metroid Confrontation was basically supposed to be just a tech demo to quickly show you, like, here's sort of a general idea of what we're going to do with level design, and here's specifically how like the engine will roughly feel like by the time we're done, and it'll showcase like new mechanics, like being able to just simply crawl into a space instead of having to go into warp mode and jump. Like you just like if the opening's a block off the ground, you can just hold right and then push A, and you'll like climb into it. Or if you hold down and right as you're going into a hole, you'll just auto morph into it. It's like he showcased off those sort of like little new movement mechanics in this demo. I was around when that was still getting updated and following that.
I didn't follow Project AM2R until it was in its second year.
I've been following it for at least 7 or 8 years. So it's like, it was sort of a, I saw it coming, but it was still sort of a bit of a punch in the gut when Nintendo took it down.
It's a good thing I caught this game. I almost missed this game like Breath of the Nest. Like, really? I had to have someone else find Breath of the Nest for me and give me the files.
What is Breath of the Nest?
It's basically Breath of the Nest. It's someone recreated.
Wait, Nest or Ness?
Ness, like NES.
Oh.
Basically, how they tested shit in Breath of the Wild before they put it in Breath of the Wild was they took the original Zelda 1, right? And they said, well, here's how using the fucking leaf makes you control the wind. So if you want to you want to attack with it, you just like throw wind around.
Okay, I went and look this up. It's like, oh, this looks like a pretty cool looking game.
That's how they tested new mechanics. That's how they tested the chopping the tree mechanic, using the leaves to blow the sail for the ships.
That's pretty funny and interesting.
That's how they tested the fire shit and the engine and shit. So someone liked that idea and they tested it and they were like, yeah, well, now I'm going to use this since you DMCA'd me, cease and desist and shit. I'm going to use this to make my own game. This was always the plan, to make my own game, but to get people hyped that someone knows how to make your engine.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. That's nice.
But I think this is a good way to end off.
Yeah.
Did you want to like share out like anything you like, the information or like where they could find you or anything?
You can find me on my YouTube, which is just youtube.com / Zyad48 ZYAD48.
All right.
I'll give a link to Metro.
I'll put it in there in the description.
Yeah. I do video. I've been doing more recently, like videos on Titanfall 2 specifically. I'm thinking of getting into like specifically talking about and breaking down like the balance of each weapon and all that I think are imbalanced in the game. And I'm also going to be doing some Metroid stuff, some more Metroid stuff as the time goes on. Like I'm gonna like maybe do like another like sort of full opinion thing on this game, or on or like just doing some other Metroid related stuff on my channel. Like I'm gonna do like a special Metroid playthrough. Like here's how I play through Metroid Prime usually, and my route is significantly different than the normal route that you're supposed to play through the game. It's pretty fun.
Oh, that's cool then. And
yeah,
I'll leave the link for him in the description. You probably like at the top of the description feed. And as far as me, if you're a newcomer to this channel, I typically like to do like art, speed paints, or I used to like to play like a lot of Overwatch. So I'll post like highlights. I've been trying to get into taking my streams from Mixer and putting them on here, but with the way that YouTube operates, I'm probably gonna make that a thing that I do for VidMe, honestly. So if you don't know where to find me other than this video, you can find me on Twitter, which is @Metrox, 3C, and everywhere else it's usually the same name. And I'm also on VidMe by the same name. So anywhere you want to find me, just look me up that way, and you're sure to find me that way, and hit me up and chat with me there. But I think we did pretty good on this, huh?
Yeah, I think we did.
All right. Well, I guess until next time, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, peace out.